The deserts of Nevada and Arizona sure know how to surprise. One day, Las Vegas popped up right in the middle of the Mojave, and the sands of Arizona's Sonoran Desert got a new addition, aka the city of Phoenix. What's more, these cities, which are literally built on sand, have already grown past the million mark. Growth hasn't paused for even a second. You'd think there's nothing left to come up with? Turns out there is. Not too long ago, massive earthquakes were underway in southern Nevada, right in the Mojave Desert. They were digging, excavating, moving tons of dirt. There were even explosions. Heavy machinery was in full swing, and hundreds of workers were sweating it out to build a brand new piece of infrastructure. The goal was to reach all the way to Arizona, specifically to the capital of the neighboring state, to none other than Phoenix. Why? That's the way to boost the connection between the two neighboring states, and in particular, their biggest cities. Well, let's figure out what's going on out there in the deserted lands of Nevada. Nevada and Arizona are two next-door states that saw major population growth from 2010 to 2020. Speaking of Nevada, its population hit 3.1 million at the beginning of this decade, which is almost a 15% rise from the 2010 number. If we're talking about Arizona, its population reached around 7.1 million in 2020, and the growth rate compared to 2010 was nearly 12%. At the same time, with a major increase in population, there's also been a rise in freight movement. For example, every year, goods worth about $144 billion pass through Nevada. As for Arizona, that number goes over $330 billion, and it's only going to grow. At least that's what the people writing the reports say. According to their forecast, by 2050, freight traffic through Nevada will grow by 55%. And as for Arizona, they predict the number will double by 2045. Meanwhile, across all this data, it's pretty obvious that the two major metropolitan areas, Las Vegas and Phoenix, take the lead. You might say they're transportation hubs that end up being either the last stop for people and freight traveling between these two cities, or a layover for those going somewhere else. Some sources even single out Phoenix and Las Vegas, along with Los Angeles, as part of a triangle of joint demographic and economic growth. How do people in cargo move between these cities? Mostly by road. People use cars and pickups, and cargo is hauled in trucks. Makes sense that a road is needed for that, one that's just right for getting between the two states. The U.S. authorities figured this out a long time ago, which is why, even back in Dwight Eisenhower's time, they began building the National System of Interstate and Defense Highways, better known as the Interstate Highway System. The whole point of this transportation overhaul in the U.S. was to make travel between states as smooth as possible. So they built roads that followed a single set of standards. So, for example, on the Interstate Highway System, you typically won't find intersections with traffic lights. You get around only via interchanges. Traffic flows are always separated by a wide stretch of land or a barrier. There are no level crossings with other roads or railroad tracks. Design speeds go over 60 miles per hour. Basically, highways have everything that makes moving between states faster and safer for both goods and people. Right now, more than 10,600 miles of the interstate highway system connect all the major cities in the U.S. directly. Take the East Coast, for example. With its bunch of big cities, it's a massive network that lets you travel quickly and safely between states and major urban centers. On the West Coast, big cities are also connected directly by the interstate highway system. Well, except for Las Vegas and Phoenix. There is a connection there, of course, otherwise it would be really weird. Between Phoenix and Las Vegas, there's part of U.S. Highway 93. But how about this headline? Maybe it's not all that serious, but the road is still really dangerous. For example, according to federal accident stats from 2010 to 2016, there were over 90 fatal accidents on this route between Phoenix and Las Vegas. In particular, the stretch of US 93 between Wickenburg and Hoover Dam stands out. That's the most dangerous part to drive on. Since the highway doesn't fully meet any standards, as they say, it's the worst road when it comes to ambulance arrival times. But the dangers of the route don't end there. Interstate highways don't have intersections, traffic lights, or exits. On US 93, they do, which creates the risk of losing time waiting at stops. Another big problem for the route between the two main towns around here is that some parts of US 93 are just two-lane roads, meaning there's no chance to pass. Also, the highway has some bottlenecks that can cause traffic jams. That's another downside compared to the interstate highway system. Overall, the route between Las Vegas and Phoenix clearly isn't what you'd call an efficient route, but the road is being upgraded now. For example, these blue and red road signs have started popping up in Nevada. They mark those interstate highways. Of course, modernization isn't just about putting up signs. People in Nevada and Arizona are currently seeing how Las Vegas and Phoenix are slowly getting connected by the new I-11 highway. According to plans, I-11 is a route that will link the two biggest metropolitan areas. However, this was basically already done with US 93, so the main thing planned is to build the road to interstate highway standards, which will help fix the issues with the existing US 93. I-11 is going to be a route with at least 4 lanes, 2 in each direction. Also, they plan to build shoulders and separate traffic flows, all for safer driving. On the new road, there won't be any same-level intersections. According to standards, all crossings with other roads will be done via bridges or tunnels. Getting on or off I-11 will happen strictly through specially designed interchanges. No access to the adjacent areas, meaning no entries or exits to private properties, fields, shops, or other sites along the road. What's also really important is that the plans for I-11 already take into account that traffic will grow, so I-11 is a route designed with traffic for the next 20 years in mind. Plus, I-11 was considered from the very start as part of the Canamex corridor, a strategically important route running from Canada to Mexico through the U.S. The truth is, nobody knows when the entire American section of Canamex will meet the needed standards. The biggest concerns are exactly about the Nevada and Arizona sections. As part of the I-11 construction project, it was decided that building a brand new highway from scratch would be too complicated and expensive, so they planned to do a combo. Create part of the route from scratch and upgrade the other part by modernizing US 93. Why not just upgrade the whole existing road? Well, there were some issues with that. For example, the Nevada section of US 93 goes right through the town of Boulder. Changing that stretch to interstate standards is either super difficult or just not possible. They'd have to tear up a lot of existing infrastructure, redo all sorts of ramps and entrances, dig tunnels right in town, so they decided to build a bypass road around Boulder. In 2015, dozens of specialized machines showed up on the Mojave Desert lands, and work kicked off on the first fully new section of the I-11 interstate, 15 miles long. This called for extensive earth moving, actually sand moving, as tons of sand and all the usual stuff of the place were dug up. Besides, it was necessary to do a lot of blasting. Yeah, to lay the detour, they really had to shake things up because part of the route went through rocky terrain. There were also spots where the main job was building bridges, and it was right at this stage that I-11 ran into trouble. During the work, they found natural asbestos in the area. Just so you know, this is a level 1 carcinogen, and without breaking it down too much, it's super dangerous and can get into people's bodies through the air. Once inside, the tiniest asbestos bits can lead to various serious diseases. The health and safety director on the project mentioned they had to take roughly 14,000 air tests during the work. Besides that, they used other unspecified measures to keep workers and locals safe. In the end, the bypass road was successfully completed in August 2018. The official opening ceremony took place at the Overlook, which offers a view of the new stretch of road and Lake Mead. This was the first thing built for the new I-11 highway, and this new route really helped ease the load on US 93 running through Boulder. That marked the end of the construction for the I-11 highway sections. Nevada became the first and so far the only state of the two to build new infrastructure for the interstate route. Besides that, starting in 2024, the Nevada Department of Transportation, or NDOT, swapped out the signs for the I-515 route running through Las Vegas with I-11 signs. They also added blue signs alongside the US 95 signs, the road that runs north from downtown Vegas. Altogether, this bumped the length of I-11 up to 30 miles. And moving forward, Nevada plans to extend I-11 further north along the existing US 95 up to the junction with I-80. This will create a continuous corridor across the whole state. Meanwhile, what's going on in Arizona? There's a big modernization underway. Since 2000, ADOT, the state's Department of Transportation, has spent $500 million on widening parts of US 93 to 4 lanes between Phoenix and Las Vegas. Sounds awesome, but lots of road sections between Vegas and Phoenix still don't measure up. Those at-level intersections are still around, making the trip slower and less smooth. When the road between the main cities of the states meets interstate standards, then we can confidently say transportation between Nevada and Arizona has become efficient. That's all for now. Arizona still has its main job ahead to build I-11 from Wickenburg, a city northwest of Phoenix, down to Nogales at the Mexican border to finish its part of Canamex, and construction hasn't even started yet because there are some issues. During the initial environmental impact assessment, several route options were suggested, specifically two main ones that are being looked at more closely, the western and the eastern. The western option means routing I-11 west of Tucson through less developed areas. Sounds perfect. Far from people who might not be too happy with all that noise and flying sand. However, this route goes too close to the Ironwood Forest National Monument. According to the nonprofit Friends of Ironwood Forest, it's home to the densest grouping of ironwood trees on Earth. Just so you know, they're called ironwoods because their wood is super hard, dense, and strong. Even so, some might be hurt by construction happening nearby. Also, Ironwood Forest is home to the only native herd of desert bighorn sheep in southern Arizona, a habitat for desert tortoises, pygmy owls, lesser long-nosed bats, cactus wrens, and other creatures. It's said that building a road near this area will wipe out the wildlife corridors they use for migration and to reach water sources. The highway acts like a barrier for animals, which can isolate populations, lower genetic diversity, or even cause instant death from vehicle collisions. Besides that, the western route of I-11 could pass near Seguro National Park, which is home to the Seguro cactus. That's not all, of course. The area is said to be generally rich in biodiversity. For conservation groups, building near such a zone is basically destroying local species. And that's not all, because the opinion of the project's opponent shows another concern: losing water. This is a very valuable resource for the area where the main source of drinking water and everything else is the Colorado River. The thing is, building the new road will lead to contamination of the groundwater. According to people, construction with all the dust and other work could cause the underground water to be lost in its normal state. And on top of that, the local indigenous people are totally against it, clearly not wanting a new road being built anywhere near their lands. What about the eastern option? It's more favored by opponents of the road and involves using the existing I-19 and I-10 highways, which will need to be upgraded and expanded, plus building bypasses where necessary. So there will be less construction work, which seems perfect for all the environmental groups and organizations connected to the local national parks. However, there are other downsides here. It'd be fine if the roads picked for the upgrade were in places where you could take other roads to keep moving, but here that's just not possible. On top of that, some of the current routes go right through heavily built-up neighborhoods, so some properties will have to be demolished to make the changes happen. Basically, with this option, there's no way to escape major traffic jams. Yep, this turns a project meant to solve traffic into one that creates it. Sounds pretty bad. Right now, construction of I-11 from the Arizona side hasn't even started, and the environmental impact assessment will have to be done all over again. And yet, the benefits of the new route are really tempting. It'll make trading with Mexico easier for the U.S., plus it'll connect Phoenix and Las Vegas, making trade in that area way more efficient than it is now. But so far, the economic benefits haven't impressed the project's opponents, so the supporters are just waiting. And we're waiting with them, since it's clear the Arizona Transportation Department will have to come up with some unusual workarounds to get this thing moving. By the way, in the same Nevada where they finished the first and only part of the route built from scratch between Vegas and Phoenix, there were also concerns and opponents of the construction who thought that the detour through Boulder would be really bad for the environment. Desert bighorn sheep live in that area too. Crossing the highways are risky business for them. Well, not just for them, but also for drivers, since no one's ever better off after crashes involving people and animals. However, a detour exists. It didn't get buried in lawsuits after all. And this was mostly possible because of additional work moving hundreds of tons of sand and mountain rock. The outcome is crossings like these. Altogether, 5 underground and 1 overground crossing were created. Is it working? In 2014, wildlife experts checked everything out. They put GPS collars on 25 bighorn sheep and tracked their movements, which allowed them to conclude the solution really works. The animals don't try to cross the new road any other way, but use the designated crossings. And it's not just the sheep using those crossings. Coyotes, foxes, desert tortoises, and even mule deer, they all prefer to calmly go through the special spots rather than risk getting hit by a car. You want to say, take a page from Arizona. The thing is, those crossings in Arizona were done long before the Boulder bypass showed up. They built animal pathways as part of the US 93 modernization. Their success is even backed up by some stats. A biologist from Arizona's Game and Fish Department said in 2018 that roughly a dozen bighorn sheep used to get hit on the highway every year. In the first year after the crossings opened, that number went down to 5. Then he added that since 2014, there haven't been any wildlife accidents at all on Arizona's US 93. In short, to finish its part of I-11, Arizona needs to rely on both its own experience and Nevada's. But will wildlife crossings really help in a situation where there are so many other worries and complaints? Time will tell.